Larkin, our general counsel, and we've got Delia Camino, the assistant general manager, as staff.
Next, we have general public participation. Members of the public who wish to speak on an item that is not on the agenda are now is the time to speak.
I think I would. Lenny here.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. I just wondered where I can view the, I should know this by now, but where may I view the architectural plans for the community center?
We don't have plans really yet. We just have some vague concepts. Actually, our consultants on the community center are actually getting engaged very quickly, and we expect to have some community outreach within the next month or so for you to see. So right now it's just preliminary work, and but yeah, no, there'll be community engagement in this, and we're looking forward to sharing it with the community.
Okay, even in the architectural, on the architectural plan of it.
Yeah, it's right now they're just, they just started. So they're just really scoping things out and getting a sense of the site and the possibilities.
Oh, okay, thank you. And is there a way that I could find out the name of the architectural firm, or any way I
called Group 4.
Oh, Group 4.
And they're the ones who've done pretty much, I would say, a large percentage of the community centers in the whole peninsula. They did Burlingame, they've done Los Altos, they did some work in Pacifica. Nancy, you know more details. You want to address that?
Pacifica, but also, Lenny, their entire proposal was part of our meeting pack. I believe we approved it at our July special meeting. So one of our agenda packs that is on the website, where we approved the Group 4 contract, their whole proposal and background with some of their sample work is there. But yeah, they're doing the Pacifica Civic Center. They did the Burlingame Community Center that just opened.
I was wondering if there was any way that a member of the community could talk with them before they draw up the plans, or I just want to address the view site to the community, to the ocean. That issue.
I think at the public outreach is the time to do that.
Oh, okay. Because I don't want to do it after they've already come up with a plan or something.
Oh, it'll be preliminary for the first public outreach.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
It's very, very important for us.
Thank you.
Chuck, are you calling on people, or shall I?
You can call on people unless you want me to.
No, it's all right. I'm not sure. Is it the person to the left that's first, or the person next to him? Let's go ahead and call on Delia, our assistant general manager.
Actually, you can call Laura first if you like.
Okay, Laura, we'd love to have you speak. Laura is running for county supervisor to represent us at the county.
Hi, everybody. Laura Palmer-Lohan. Thank you so much, President Dye, for the intro. Just here to listen and understand what's important to you with this special district. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to just sit here and kind of absorb it all, because I want to make sure that I'm focused on that which is most important to you as I move forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your interest. Okay, Delia.
Okay, I'm sorry, could I just confirm Laura is running for supervisor, you said?
Yes.
Great. Okay, well, I wanted to take an opportunity to comment on the elephant in the room, which was the article that appeared in the Half Moon Bay Review. I had difficulty reading the thing from start to finish. I kind of skimmed it. The first thing that had kind of bothered me initially was the headline that said that it was an unusual request. And, in reality, after I thought about it, it was somewhat unusual, because the typical citizen would not usually know to ask for credit card statements. That would only come from somebody like me who's watching, the fiscal goings on of Sam. But anyways.
Delia, can I interrupt you and just give a little preface to what the article was? Because
Oh, sure. Yeah, sorry.
not everyone has read it. So it was an article in the Half Moon Bay Review concerning Sam and some of their finances and their financial dealings. And then, Delia had submitted a Public Records Act request, and it took a while longer than she expected or any of us expected to get that answered. And then there were a couple comments from several of the board members of the member agencies talking about what was right with Sam and what was wrong with Sam and things like that. So that's kind of the general gist of the article. So I didn't want to interrupt you, but I want to give some context.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. I just assumed. I didn't want to go into too much detail, but in actuality, I did make a public records request back on May 20th. And it wasn't the time that it took to get it. It was the way it was handled. I requested a very specific item and I was provided with a substitute. And then when I basically confirmed again what I had originally asked for, it was turned into, it was considered somehow that I asked for more, which really wasn't the case. It was what I originally asked for. And anyways, I did receive what I requested. I made a second request for some backup, which caused some more trouble, I guess I'd say. I got involved in a conversation with the SAM chair, and I just felt like, I expected to be treated like any other citizen, and I believe that the Public Records Act does provide that. And even though it was an unusual request, it was not inappropriate. It was a request for disclosable public documents. So, but I was kind of pushed around a little bit. That's the way I felt. Now, when I received the documents with the backup, I discovered that there were some charges on the credit card that seemed to me as inappropriate. And I did take it to our SAM representatives. I took it to our general manager, and I think they kind of felt that there was not much they could do about it. So because it was an important issue for me, and the reason being is because, I've learned over time that ethics is one of the most important part of what government is all about, because we have laws in society so that we have civilized people. In government we have laws, but those aren't enough, because a lot of times they're kind of vague or broad, or they can be interpreted different ways. So we have ethics as a backup. So we are supposed to have these high standards of ethics serving the public. And I felt that when you see liberties taken with credit card that is paid for by public funds, that it was odd to see someone taking the liberty of buying a lot of candy, a lot of granola bars, gift bags. There were gift cards. There were churro strips, and just these weird beans. I don't remember how you pronounce the churro. Is it churro beans? So it appeared. Yeah, thank you. So it, from my standpoint, if I'm at Safeway buying supplies for the district office, because we have to have those things to operate, we need toilet paper and we need paper towels. If I happen to throw in a bag of chips or a candy bar and paid for me and paid for that on a district credit card, it would be inappropriate. And that would not be meeting the high standards that we are expected to maintain, because it's not my money, it's public funds, and it has to be respected in that manner. And I just felt that it was inappropriate for the SAM general manager to be taking those liberties. And I wanted to bring it to the attention. It was not about the amount so much, it was about the ethics. And so I just wanted to clarify that.
And Delia's issues with the PRA request, and like she said, I think she's coming from a good spot of, we all want government transparency, we all want ethics. We take every 2 years, we take a 2-year ethics course. Public Records Act's requests are part of the government code. You can request anything from a government and get it as part of the transparency of government, and that's how it should be run. I think that's Delia's kind of overall point, if I could summarize that, Delia.
Thank you, yes. I'd just like to add that it's actually the tip of a much larger issue, because there are other things that are much, that involve larger sums of money that I feel are kind of being brushed under the carpet. And I do want to mention this because there was a finance committee meeting today that I had planned to speak at, and it was canceled at the last minute. But at on Monday, there was a SAM meeting, and I made the mistake of not realizing that the fourth quarter report for last year was on consent. And so I didn't realize that until the attorney's report that it had been passed through consent without any discussion whatsoever, which I was really very surprised about, because that is such an important thing for board oversight to discuss, especially when you consider the fact that SAM overspent their O&M budget, their operations and maintenance, and that includes the administration budget, the treatment division, and the environmental and compliance division. They overspent that last year by $1 million. And that is being subsidized with the allocation for the capital improvement projects. So it is part of a bigger problem that I just wanted to point out. And there was no discussion about the fourth quarter report. And I feel that was a real oversight on the part of the board. So.
And thanks, Delia. And I just want to say, we our two SAM reps, Director Dye and Director Clark, have been working hard to try and
yes, they have. I
push forward this financial transparency to get reporting done to capital improvement projects on hopefully a monthly basis and things like that. So it's an ongoing issue. Thanks, Delia.
We can make a further report under the SAM report, but
Thank you.
I will say that we made it that issue of the overage was not ignored, and we have some new procedures in place that I think will make sure that things like that don't happen again. So we'll talk more about that under the SAM report. This is the part where we're actually not supposed to respond to public comment. So it might have been better to do it under the SAM report. We'll discuss it further there.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Delia.
Yeah, this is not business related. I'm getting a ton of feedback though when everybody's talking. Like it's hard to hear. So
And I keep muting. I keep
yeah,
muting
if you're not
people
talking,
there.
please mute yourself.
And I've got everybody muted except me.
Okay,
And you,
see,
Eric.
it's good now. So yeah, I think I don't know who it is, but
It may be me. It's been me before, but
Okay.
unfortunately have to.
All right.
I'll try to stay muted when I'm not talking. So before we start, I had a couple things that I wanted to say. Actually, let me do the resolution proclaiming. First, we need to, in our regular meeting agenda, we need to approve a resolution proclaiming a local emergency, allowing us to continue to use Zoom for our meetings. Can we have a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? Matthew
Second.
seconds. Okay. We have a roll call, please.
Director Dye,
Yes.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Sukamel,
yes.
Director Seaton,
Aye.
and who did I miss? Director Marsh?
Aye.
I'm sorry, who
Motion passed.
seconded that motion? Who seconded
Matthew.
that?
Matthew did. So motion passes 5-0.
And then a couple things I just wanted to say. I wanted to acknowledge the fact that two of our board members have chosen not to run for re-election, Eric Sukamel and David Seaton. I wanted to express my appreciation for all their efforts through the years in serving on our board. Eric's been, as an environmental engineer, has been very helpful in terms of helping us look at some of the engineering aspects and the environmental aspects of what we do. He's been a calm voice of good sense for us as we go along, and we will miss him. We can appreciate him more when we get to the point where they're finishing their service, but I didn't want to let this moment to go by without acknowledging that. And I also wanted to acknowledge David Seaton, who I don't always agree with, but I have to say I certainly value David's enthusiasm, his passion for how he feels about these issues, his commitment to serving the community on this board. And we will miss both of them when they move on. So I wanted to thank them for all their service and suggest that I would like to discuss somewhere in the new community center, doesn't have to be big or fancy, but I would like to have a list of the people who've served on the GCSD board and made a contribution here. And then last but not least, we acknowledge Laura, who is here running as a candidate for supervisor. I also wanted to acknowledge that Jen Randall is here, who is a candidate for our board. So we're happy to have her listening to us today and getting up to speed on some of the issues that we're dealing with. Is there anything else we need to discuss before we start into the business of this meeting?
Barbara, could I just confirm, you said you wanted a list of all of the directors that have served on this board?
I would like a plaque or something.
Okay, because I have maintained a list, and I think
Right.
a plaque is a great idea. So I will present the list, and then maybe I can get some ideas on the plaque.
I don't want anything big and grandiose, but I think people who spend 4 years, many times more than 4 years, serving the community, their names ought to be somewhere. So I'd like to see us look into doing something along those lines. I think, Lenny, you were on this board, correct? Yes. So we've had a lot of community members who've been on this board and made a contribution. So, all right, moving on to item 2, Parks and Recreation Activities. Report from Parks Advisory Committee. Did you want to say anything, Chuck, or go to Nancy?
We can go straight to Nancy.
Well, I was floating around with that polar bear when they had the special PAC meeting. So Delia, I know that they reviewed the disc golf feedback, and we're going to talk about disc golf in a minute. I did want to mention San Mateo County Parks is sponsoring a movie in the park at Quarry Park on Saturday, this coming Saturday. And GCSD is sponsoring a movie in the park 2 weeks later on October 1st that primarily Delia on behalf of PAC has organized. And so just those 2 community events are coming. And Delia, I don't know if there's anything else we need to mention at this point. No.
Not that I can think of. I know that Fran Pollard had indicated that I expected her at this meeting. There was an issue that was discussed at the PAC meeting that had to do with the parking at Quarry Park. And PAC had agreed to support her to push for the expansion of the parking lot, but I'm not really sure to what extent that support was going to take place. So.
Okay, we should find out from Nick what the timeline is, because I know they were scoping it out.
Yeah. The county has committed adding the additional parking places. It's my understanding that it's a permitting issue to get it done. So there will be 18 additional parking places, which will be good because it will reduce the impacts on the adjacent neighborhood. So I think that's a good thing. Nancy, you're going to speak to the community center.
Sure. The community center project management team, which is Dr. Dye and myself and Chuck, along with the Group 4 team, had a joint planning meeting with the parks principals, so with Tom Conroy as well. Had 2 meetings in August and plan to have project management team meetings at least once a month. The next one is next week, or the 28th of September. A lot of the groundwork, as Barbara noted, being done is the park and community center sharing resources and joining ranks on the geotechnical review. I saw the geotech truck out at the preschool last week, and gathering a lot of that background information that they need, code requirements and so on. So that work is underway that will inform drawing the schematics that will be the first pass at community input, aiming for sometime in October for those. So when we hopefully by the end of October, we will be having the first community input. G4 will manage that with kiosks and displays and kind of the whole setup, which we'll likely do out there on the strip. And similar to the park event that was a couple weeks ago, we'll make sure that it's well socialized in the community. And did I miss anything, Barbara? And should I ask for any questions?
Sure.
Any questions from the community center? We have.
Yeah, I'll just add that as usual, Group 4 and Dawn, I think I pronounced her last name correctly, Merkus, is really moving along well on the project.
This is the first time they've ever had to deal with a coastal permit, evidently. So that makes it a little more complicated, which ties into our report on Burnham Park. We had our first complete Burnham Park team meeting, which includes our newest consultant, which is
Horizon Water
and Environment, which is good, our CEQA consultants. So they are just about on board, need to finalize their contract. And the good news is that we have scheduled or tentatively scheduled our first meeting with a county. As many of you know, or we've reported before, early in this process, we held a meeting with the head of county planning to go over our ideas for the park. We got some good direction from them. And now that we have a much more final plan, we have all the planning that's been done by our geotechnical consultants, BKF engineers. We have lots more work that's been done that we're ready to go and get some feedback from the county. So it's exciting that that's moving forward.
Yeah, and kind of the main thrust of this group meeting is we're trying to wrap together a coherent and cohesive schedule with all the different consultants and whatnot. So we're working toward that. And another big piece of this, we've got a parks costing consultant on board to start getting a early idea of what this thing is really going to cost. And that's a big important part of this, obviously, because we're looking at financing and grants and things like that. I've heard rumors that the county is already pledging money to help us. So that's great. So
that might be overstating it. That might be overstating it a little bit.
I'll lob it in there quickly.
And we have made the decision to permit the community center and the park as one project. The Coastal Commission doesn't like you to piecemeal things, so it makes sense to do them both together. So we'll be taking them both through the approval project together.
I should add that the cost project will really also inform the community centered scope, because the money we get is the money we have. So the park and community can both have to fit within that envelope, whether we finance or not. So it will kind of inform how much we can do.
And I'll add to your community center report, Nancy. I've been pursuing financing for the purchase of the land we purchased and whatnot. So we're moving ahead hard on that. So hopefully the team can have something in 2 weeks. Certainly by our next meeting, we'll have proposals from different banks on different loan structures and things like that. So that's good news. And broadly speaking, Barbara and Delia, remind me when I forget this, I think we should include the minutes from both meetings in this item, right? Dawn's pretty good about getting her minutes out. You got your minutes out quickly, so I think it'd be good for the community and the board to have that in the packet.
That's a great idea.
That would be great.
Yeah. So it's moving along. There's a lot of things to be looking at. All right. Anything else on Burnham Park? The only other remaining issue is the name of the park. We did solicit some community output. We had another a potential name suggested for that, which was Jetty Park. I think maybe we'll put it on one of our agendas for further discussion in the future. So that's another issue that remains out there. All right, moving on to consideration of revised disc golf proposal and public outreach results, which now are no longer of such concern. So Nancy, do you want to update us on?
Yeah, after a year of routinely checking in with the superintendent of schools, who initially had a quite positive response to letting us use that property for a recreational use, as long as it was something that was not too invasive and could be removed easily if they decided to develop the land. Just yesterday, Pat checked in again ahead of this meeting with the superintendent and was told that they no longer are interested in working with us for a recreational amenity on that lot. They are having, again, development ideas for the property. And so that just really cuts us off. I will tell you that we also had checked in because of information I had gotten from another project with what the requirements would be for a porta potty, and if we could have a porta potty there. And the guidance that I got from the county at environmental health was that we likely would need to put in a vault toilet, which was certainly more expensive than we were looking for and more of an invasive project than the superintendent was excited for us to have. But he didn't even know about that at this point. He just informed Pat that they no longer want to pursue a memorandum of understanding to let us use the property for recreational use. So quite a disappointment, because there was a really fairly positive response. There are concerns, of course, from some of the close neighbors, but overall it seemed like concerns that could be mitigated and a generally positive response. But that was the one kind of last piece of land outside of something in Quarry Park that we thought would be appropriate for disc golf.
Just to confirm that the community, members of our Parks Committee brought this project to us, and the board said, as the first step, we want to know what the neighbors to this potential project think. And that's really all that had happened so far, and some investigation of other things. So tonight, our agenda item was to take the next step to try to firm up answers to the questions that the community had. But now that the school district has withdrawn, that option has gone away. So Matthew, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you. Nancy, did you, when you spoke with the superintendent, did you get the sense that he was expressing the will of the school board?
It was a very short note actually from Pat yesterday. I wouldn't, and it was a conversation between he and the superintendent, and the board wasn't mentioned. The superintendent did also mention that he had received some complaints, probably from the same people from whom we received complaints, which is unfortunate. He didn't have the 70 people's worth of responses. And I don't know if that colored his response, but it didn't appear to me to be on behalf of the board. And I don't know if it ever went to the board, actually, since you bring that up.
The other aspect that we should mention is that between the vault toilet and the permitting that was clearly going to be required, it was going to start costing hundreds of thousands of dollars for us. And right now, with all the expenses we have ahead for the park and the community center, we would have had to think long and hard about whether that was an expense that we wanted to incur. So
the installation is the most minimal expense. It's all of the preparation for it that seemed like it was really going to ramp up.
Yeah. So
I think we should put out a press release on this. And, because a lot of people were interested, and sounds like we're dead in the water now, so we should explain what's going on.
Do you know, I'll say something and then I'll let Michelle talk, because I'm sure she's very good at informing the community for us. But I don't know if you've noticed the Half Moon Bay Review now has actually, I think, a pretty comprehensive format for all the public meetings about what was discussed and why. So I think there's the opportunity to make sure it goes into that format. But I'd like to hear what Michelle might do with Coastside Bus.
Michelle, over to you, one of our Parks Committee members.
Hi, I'll just, send out this recording of the discussion and maybe a couple of lines from Matthew. From, so I'm sorry, I'm blanking post buzz
Pat.
days. Yes, Matt. Anyway, so I'll put something out there for sure. It is a disappointment, but I've known for at least a year that they've had a consultant that's been working with CUSD on all of their properties. So this is really not a surprise. In fact, I know I mentioned it at the meetings that CUSD was indeed doing this. So I wouldn't take any offense to it. And although there may have been some neighbors that were more vocal than others, I think John just really had to do what he had to do. And also, this is getting really expensive.
Is there any potential for Murata East? What's has there, because I know, they talk about a pump track going there and everything. So, I know I've heard people talk about it there. Has anybody heard anything why that there would be opposite?
Murata East is part of the Quarry Park master plan. And
Okay.
they took disc golf out of their master plan. And they seem to be very keen not to put anything on Murata East, perhaps because there's no bathroom there and there's no parking there. But I know it was one of the places that there was a lot of lobbying to potentially put the pump track, and they absolutely wouldn't put it there.
There's wetlands there too.
There's wetlands there. There are one of the people who was advocating for disc golf, who does have some portable disc golf nets, actually does head over there because that's where he likes to play and set up his portables. But the SMC Parks seemed to decide that they were not going to put disc golf in the park.
It looks like we're moving on from that. I mean, the work that was done, I have to give a lot of credit to the Parks Committee and the people in this community who worked really hard to flesh it out. I mean, we said, find out what the community wants. They did that and more. They really did a very thorough look at what it would be, what it would take, the impacts it would have. Yes, there would have had to have been more review, but we do thank them for all their hard work and looking to this one more recreational option in our community that looks like it won't work out. Shall we move on?
I just want to say it's just so frustrating as I go into San Mateo, and my kid plays at all these parks, and I'm so amazed at all these parks I never even knew about all over San Mateo, San Carlos, within these neighborhoods. It's just amazing. There's tons, there's hundreds of baseball fields, and we have so much land on the coast, and it is so disappointing. And maybe this time, Laura, you could hear the frustration in my voice when I say it is a complete disappointment on all sides, all agencies, open space, everyone. We have this land and we're doing nothing with it. We don't need to develop it. I'm talking make people, bring them out and exercising and using it. And it's so disappointing that we pretend that we're San Francisco with, we have so much potential, and it just, it's sad. I think it's sad that I would say let's not end it, because I agree. I would like to hear more from the school district about, is it just these minor things that are holding you up? Because we could take care of those things, versus is it really some, are they going to sell the property, or is there something where, it's out of our control? There's but yeah, I would like to, it's just so disappointing. We have so much land, so much open space that's never going to be built on, but yet no one wants to do nothing with it except look at flowers and instead of humans actually using it. And it's disappointing, and it needs to change soon.
Thank you, David. All right, I think we've talked that through. Oh, Delia, did you want to speak to this?
Just quickly, I wanted to ask if I could put something on our website about the developments of okay. And
Yes,
maybe
I'll put something on next door too.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think Delia, if you work with Pat to
Yeah.
put something up, that's
Thanks.
great.
Yeah. All right. Anything further on this item? Okay, moving on to consideration of extending the lease at 480 Avenue Alhambra, El Granada to Picasso Preschool. Chuck, did you want to give us a little?
Yeah, I have a pretty brief report on this, though. As you all know, when we purchased the Picasso land and the Picasso preschool was on there, the board extended their lease through 2023. And we had thought at the time that perhaps the pace of development would be such that we'd have more progress by then. And we have been making good progress, but these big projects obviously take time. So we don't think there'll be anything significant occurring on the actual site. And by significant, I mean construction-wise, by fall of 2023. So this gives your board an opportunity, if you so desire, to extend the lease for one more year to 2024. And I think it helps transition, the preschool from, it's historically a preschool, and it will be a community center, obviously, but it gives them another year and hopefully, gets a few more kids through there. So, but, this decision's up to your board, obviously.
Nancy, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, just to actually just make it more precise, the lease goes through because the school year for the preschool goes from the 1st of September to the end of August. The current lease goes through August 2023. So I agree with your proposal, Chuck. I would say through August to the end, August 31st, 2024, which provides the preschool with another full school year for them. I think if we are ready to go by then, that would be great, but the signals for how long the permitting and the process will take, given what we've learned so far from the park, is I hope we'd be ready to go in September of 2024.
We're going to have to get through the permitting process, and then we're going to have to go out to bid. There's going to be a lot happening. We did bring this up at our Burnham Park team meeting with all the various consultants, and everyone agreed that there was no way we were going to be ready to go in the fall of 2022. So hopefully, fall of 2022. So you're right.
2023.
So we're extending it to 2024. Does anyone else want to speak to this item?
Lenny?
Lenny's got her hand up. Unmute, Lenny.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Yes, thank you for considering this, and I hope that I just want to urge you to extend the lease of the Picasso School for as long as you possibly can. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks, Lenny.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm disappointed in this, but in the real world, things like this do move really slowly. So I'm okay with through August of 2024, but I also want to say that maybe this is good because it gives us a real start date the following month to perhaps actually have construction going on the property.
Thank you. Eric.
I'm fully supportive of it. And I would also suggest that we keep the terms of the lease as they currently stand.
All right. Seeing no more, then I have a motion, please.
I move to extend the preschool lease through August 31st, 2024 on current terms, as Eric noted.
I'll second.
I think
Well,
Dave.
first, I think Eric seconded it at first. Yes.
Okay.
I did not actually. I think David.
Oh, I thought I heard someone else. Okay, David, was that you?
David. It was
Oh,
David.
David. Okay. I know that David and Eric are the ones who proposed putting this on our agenda, and when we looked at it, we agreed that they were.
I'm happy to second it, but David, credit.
Okay.
Seconding.
So Nancy and David, any further discussion of the motion? Could we have a roll call, please?
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Marsh,
Aye.
Director Sukamel,
Aye.
and Director Seaton.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Can I just make one comment? I just think it's worthwhile because the ownership of our building that we're in right now has changed. And I spoke with the general manager of the Harbor District, who now owns the building, and he did not see any problem with extending our lease, which expires next year. We won't be
Good
homeless.
news and good
Good point.
proactive. thinking. Yes, I was wondering, and I think that's my fault because I suggested us making the lease shorter. So, but
We'd
Sounds
have
like
been back into the pump station building that Bill loves so much.
all right, anything
I
further?
mean,
on
that
this
one's
item?
not structurally unsound, so maybe Delia wants to be in it.
It's just full of paper.
Paper will hold the roof up. There's an earthquake.
All right, consideration of amendment to district personnel manual. This seems like pretty straightforward. Delia,
All
do you
right.
want to give the report or Chuck?
Delia, Ken?
Okay, well, we adopted our personnel manual a couple of years ago, and it did not include any benefits for employees who would need to go on a leave of absence or for illness, an unpaid leave. And the district pays $1,400 a month towards medical insurance. And so I basically fashioned this after what the SAM MOU provides for their representative employees. They provide for 3 months. They will continue paying the employer portion of the medical for an employee if they're on unpaid leave of absence. So I'm requesting that this be considered to be included. And I also, because it was on the same page, we had a new national holiday that was added last year by an act in 2021. So I thought it was a good chance to go ahead and get that extra holiday in there, which is Juneteenth. And that's what's presented before you. That just want to mention the maximum cost to the district for the amendment for the extension of medical would be $4,200.
Well, I'm happy that the whole country is now celebrating my wedding anniversary.
Ah,
Juneteenth. Nancy, did you want to speak to this?
I support the proposal. I just have maybe a technical question. In the manual, proposed revision to the manual, it says insurance costs over the district's contribution amount of $1,400 per month. I'm wondering, because those costs may change from time to time, if you want to be that specific in the manual, or rather say the district's then current healthcare contribution, so that you don't have to update the manual every time the costs get updated.
Okay, we can do that. Actually, the board sets that cost, so that's not something that adjusts automatically, the employer contribution, as far as I know.
But whenever it does, you'd have to update
Okay,
the employer.
all right.
manual.
right.
We can do that.
I think that's a good ad, and
Yeah.
and we should look at putting in an inflation escalator or something. Didn't you tell me that Sam's got something like that, Delia?
It's hard to understand what they provide by reading the current MOU that's available on their website, but it started out at $1,819 per month back on January of 2020, and their inflator is based on some CalPERS COLA, and so I don't know what that percentage is. I'd have to find out. I don't know what they contribute right now for medical, but they apparently also have some other minimum contribution that they make on top of the base health insurance premium amount. So it's a little confusing, but yeah.
Let's deal with this issue that's before us right now. Matthew.
Thanks. I support this proposal as well. And as we have a full-time employee currently on paid leave, I think we should make it retroactive to the first of this month.
I think she's on paid leave, so she hasn't started the unpaid part yet.
Oh,
The
Well,
first,
yeah,
this
when
is- yeah.
Go ahead, Delia.
Well, I was just going to say, this is the first pay period was September 15th, and SDRMA automatically goes into our account to take those premiums out. So she has we've already paid our portion for September. And if it were that this was not adopted, then she would owe the district for that amount to continue her insurance.
So maybe we should make it for September 1st then, just to be thorough.
We had talked, yeah, and I had talked to Delia about this. I had talked to Bill about this. I'm going to profess right now, I'm not going to pretend to understand the paid leave, unpaid leave, and pregnancy leave and whatnot. But, you know, Nora's going to be out 3.5 months, and I suggested if we added a month to it, make it 4 months. That's how long, you know, Bill had told me what they can add on with doctor's notes and things like that. You know, the people are out, they're not getting paid. I don't want to lapse someone's health coverage while they're in a pregnancy or anything else really, but we just happen to have a pregnancy in front of us. So.
Yeah. I mean, it is, as with most businesses, there's no maternity leave, there's short-term disability for the disability known as childbirth. I always thought that was a bit odd. But I think this is really aimed more at if you then take family medical leave, which is up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave, then this will cover healthcare for that period.
Okay.
So is the motion or the proposal that's in the agenda what we need a motion for, or are you proposing a change to it?
You asking me?
Yes.
Yeah, I was suggesting 4 months, but I think Nancy just explained.
What the basis is for 3 months is basically to cover FMLA.
Right. So I'm not, yeah, I don't want to speak to it because I don't know enough about it, honestly. I was just trying to look out for the employee who's
Yes. We all want to look
not
out for
making any money, right? So
our valued employee who's on a maternity leave. Okay. Can I have a motion, please?
I move to approve the as proposed with the
Staff
wording.
recommendation? You improve the staff
Yeah.
record?
Move to approve the staff recommendation with the noted wording change for the staff manual.
okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Marsh,
Aye.
Director Sukamel,
Aye.
and Director Seaton.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
All right, moving on to report on sewer authority mid-coast meetings. And I want to speak to a couple of financial issues. It is true that during the past year, the operations side of SAM overspent by $1 million for items that were approved by the board. However, when those items were reviewed by the board, it was not always clear that this was deficit spending. And I've been working pretty closely with SAM management, and I think we have some changes made that are going to make sure that situations like this, even if they happen again, they're not going to be reviewed and approved in the same way. We are now going to have, for every expenditure that is presented to the board for approval, there will be a specific line item that says where the funding is going to come from. And we are now having regular reports on the status of the infrastructure program. And there were issues in the past where the agencies would pay SAM to do infrastructure projects that essentially didn't get done. And there wasn't enough accountability. But now, starting with 21-22, there are going to be regular reports on the status of the infrastructure program. And I had a discussion today about doing revisions on a regular basis because stuff does come up. I mean, there needs to be some flexibility. At our last SAM meeting, we approved a couple $100,000, I think, how much was it, Matthew? Expenditure to replace the emitters, the ocean outfall Turned out it was, last time they looked at it, one of them had a problem, but the rest of them were fine a year ago. This time they looked at them and they said there were major needs for replacement of that. And that's what sends the cleaned wastewater that goes into the ocean out. And it's really critical that that equipment be in good condition. So we approved that, and they specified where that funding was going to come from. But things like this do come up. And so I'm working with the SAM staff to try to figure out ways that we can provide sufficient flexibility while we still have oversight of the spending. So
I think that one was 132,000, but it doesn't cover all the expenses. It turns out that those, what are they, 3.5, 4 feet long, those duckbill dispensers, as they're called. Sam already has, I don't know how many of them, but they're $3,000 each. And Sam already has some in reserve. The money authorized may not cover everything, because there'll be another inspection going on while they're doing the replacements. And there may be additional work and that we don't know about yet. So, but it's absolutely critical, has to be done.
And so that's what we're grappling with. And a lot of the financial problems that Sam has are kind of left over from the previous manager and the problems there, though it's about time that we got them all, working properly. Enough time has gone by. And so I think we're making real progress on making sure that the money that we give to Sam to spend on infrastructure actually gets spent on the projects that we have authorized, and that operations doesn't spend, cover their excesses with unused infrastructure money, which is what happened in the past. So, while I understand that there are issues with it, I do feel like we're making great progress and have a far better accountability now than we ever have since I've been involved. I mean, when I first came on the board, we'd get spreadsheets from the general manager where the numbers didn't even, the percentages were not the same as the actual, when you calculated the percentages, things in spreadsheets didn't match. And now we have much more reliable numbers, and I feel like we're making great progress. So, Matthew, did you want to add anything to that?
You want me to give a summary of the previous meetings?
Sure.
Pardon?
Sure. Yes, please.
The August 22nd meeting, various other $100,000 plus things came up. The board authorized a study by Integral Consulting that is a model of hydrodynamic flood model. That's a big problem on the horizon, the possibility of flooding at the plant and shutting off the electricity, hence the entire plant. And that was $124,800. And that model is going to show us show Sam better than we know now of what it should be done, which direction should we go for the needed improvements. Second one on the 22nd was Sam is acquiring a truck-mounted generator at almost $109,000 made by Generac, which is the biggest generator company in the country. And I wish we had gotten a figure on that also for the annual maintenance costs, because basically Generac are the only people who know how to do maintenance on their own equipment. And so there will be ongoing costs for that. But again, this is something else that Sam really needs because, General Manager gave a report at the last meeting about how Sam had obliged the California power grid by closing down and running on generators for several days during the recent heat wave. And those kind of things are also going to occur more often and probably worse. So this is another thing that Sam did really need. And another item in that on that meeting was we okayed the disposal of outdated equipment, primarily a couple trucks that aren't worth fixing anymore. And one thing that was in the GM report that I found heartening actually was we used to get every month. I've been watching this. Every month we get 2 or 3 times when the gas flame that burns off the excess gas would go out, and somebody would have to go out there whenever it was and try to reignite the thing. And I think it's been 3, maybe 4 months now since we've seen that happen. So there's been some improvement on however that system works. The flame stays on. So that was good. And then let's see, the September 12th meeting, the board authorized Environmental Dynamics International for spray foam header piping, in-basin aeration components, and scope adjustments for the main air supply for aeration basin number 4 at $138,000. And that is, as I understood it, going to allow that larger aeration basin to go into full service in conjunction with aeration basin 3, and that will improve our SAM's total functioning and what goes out through those duckbill disposers.
And that's part of the infrastructure specifically mentioned in the infrastructure budget.
Right.
The cost of getting aeration basin 4 up and functioning.
Yeah, and it was at that meeting that we discussed and authorized another $132,000 item for the diving team to go and do the excavation and repair of the damaged outfall diffusers. And as Barbara mentioned, there's an annual inspection of the outfall, which is required, I believe, by the state regs. And last year they looked pretty good. This time they look pretty bad, and a lot of the diffusers just get buried by the sand as it moves back and forth, and so they have to excavate probably around the majority, maybe all of them. I think there were how many? 36 diffusers out there. So some will be replaced and some will have to be excavated, and then we'll see how they look. And that was the main thing from the September 12th meeting.
Thank you, Matthew. Nancy, did you have questions?
Question and comment. The question is, I think from a meeting that I attended the meeting where several months ago where they went over the infrastructure projects proposed for this year's budget. And I think that generator on the trailer was one of them. It was in that infrastructure budget. And so having been to that, I never accepted their pushback that it was too hard to track these projects and the spend. So I want to thank you both for continuing to not take no for an answer on that. It's having run a business that was very capital equipment intensive, it's not that hard. And even if it was, it's important to do it anyway, so that we are assured that the maintenance they said was required is actually being done to keep the infrastructure up to date. So I just wanted to thank you both for staying on it. My only suggestion is if that was one of the budgeted infrastructure projects, it would be great if Kishan could, in his report, note this is a budgeted infrastructure project, so that
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Now all projects are going to say where the money's coming from.
Okay.
All
Yeah, I mean, it was on the list that they had asked money for.
Exactly. Yes.
So theoretically, we no longer will have to ask where the money's coming from.
Exactly.
Yeah, or if it was on their proposed list when they asked for the money.
Right.
In the past, sometimes it was like, well, we have to do this, so can you authorize it? And we, but now
It's planned versus unplanned. So this was a planned spend from the
There will
money
be
they asked for.
emergencies, and then, they need to say where the money's coming from. So, great.
Great. thank you.
Delia,
Thank you. I have two quick questions. I don't know, maybe Chuck can answer one of them. Has there been any discussion about the non-domestic wastewater source control fees they're collecting from Rocket Farms and possibly, no?
I haven't heard peep about it, no.
Okay. There are, from what I understand, after speaking with Petition, they are not billing the restaurants for the annual fog control. And that's something they've always done. I asked why it stopped, and it was his belief that it stopped because the general managers decided to stop that billing. However, when I spoke with Chuck about it, it was his understanding that they were just talking about the fees for the BOD issue and not for the restaurants. So the only fees they're collecting right now that you'll see on their financials is actually from one client, and that all comes from Rocket Farms. And that's for some industrial waste for their osmosis water thing that they do. It's quite a lot of money, but all those fees used to go towards the environmental compliance budget. And now that isn't the case. So I'm just wondering if they have any intentions of getting that back on track.
I'll ask for a report on that. Let's get a report.
The last thing we just, the whole non-domestic program was a bigger issue with the BOD, obviously. And they kind of melded the fog program in, and we decided to let Sam run it like they needed to run it for a year, and we'd revisit it at the end of a year. So, which is coming up in December. It'll be our little Christmas bonus. So.
And did you have a second question, Julia?
Yeah, it's worthwhile to mention that the amount that we're charging Rocket Farms for sewer service is right around $6,000. And according to Kishan, Sam has charged them $25,000 over the course of the last year so there's quite a disparity there and on that. But the second question I had to do with something completely different. And maybe you can help me with my memory. There was a presentation made in February or March, and I thought there was going to be an update about it in July, and it was supposed to be, there was a trial, and it was supposed to get a final report in September that we haven't seen yet. It had to do with some indicators that were being put on the influent to try and figure out where the various problem, the high BOD or other issues were coming from. And I haven't heard anything about that. So I'm just curious what happened to that, if you know what I'm talking about.
Don't know.
I have a vague recollection of that, and they had been going from, I don't want to get too technical here because I'm the only sewer guy here, but
we're all sewer people, Chuck.
I'm too intimately involved, though. It goes from BOD to COD. It's an easier measurement and things like that. And they were talking about different ways to measure that stuff earlier in the process to manage the process. But I haven't heard a report back either, Julia.
It's my understanding they did develop a way to measure the COD in-house that was, because BOD takes 5 days to measure, right?
Yeah, and COD is actually relatively easy to measure now. And every year, you can imagine, new technology comes out. We just put some in our treatment plant that does it almost instantaneously.
Okay, I'll ask about that as well.
And I just want to say, as part of this whole discussion, thank you, Matthew and Barbara, for the financial work. And I'll just tell the people who don't know, SAM is 70% of GCSD's sewer costs. So, what goes on at SAM affects us certainly more so than what we're doing here almost. So, thank you.
All right. Anything further on that? Moving on to the consent agenda.
Before we move on, I did want to hear more because we can't talk about it in an opening, Delia, just some of the details in terms of what brought it on and total amounts that we're talking about? How far back the statements that you've reviewed so far, versus how long we might want to look.
Well, I'd be
into it?
happy to send you the information. I only asked for the current fiscal year. The request was made in May, so it was 10 months of the year that just ended. So it would be 21-22 fiscal year. So it was just that current year. And so that's all I looked at. And
Okay, and go ahead.
The amount that Kishan had reported on food was actually a little deceptive because a lot of the expenses I found were actually going into supplies. It just seemed a little over the top for a sewer district to be spending that kind of money on candy. So.
All right, well, I don't think.
So can you send David
Yeah.
that stuff then?
I'd be happy to send him the information.
Great, thank you. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Anyone want to pull anything from the consent agenda? All right, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Dye.
Aye.
Excuse me. Director Clark.
Aye.
Director Marsh.
Aye.
Director Sukamel.
Yes.
And Director Seaton.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
All right, do we have any committee reports? Anyone been to a seminar, conference, or committee meeting? All right, moving on, information calendar. I wanted to comment here. I guess we'll go, well, first, is there an attorney's report?
No report.
Is there a general manager's report?
I've got nothing further.
Is there an administrative staff report?
I just want to announce that as of Tuesday, I have a temporary assistant coming into the office. And I think she said that she is available for, if necessary, until Nora returns to work. And her name is Michelle. She goes by Shell. I think she'll work out pretty well as she lives right here in Moss Beach. So I just thought I'd let you know there'll be someone here to cover the little stuff.
Great, thank you. That's good to know. Engineers report. Chuck, before we go into it, I thought we decided to move the engineers report up in the agenda.
Yeah, I had a note about that, but I quite honestly didn't understand my note. So what was our decision?
Well, I just feel like it's actually of interest. It's one of the things that we do as a board is to deal with the sewers in El Granada, and
Okay.
the report is interesting. Can we move it up somehow? I don't know.
Why don't we move it in front of the SAM report, or before or after it?
Sure.
They're kind of operations related, if you will. So.
And so as today's report says that we awarded the contract to Koyos Engineering for $486,000. They're all set. They've got the insurance and the bonds, and they should be starting work fairly soon. So we'll try to get out some information to the community. All the residents whose sewers are going to be replaced will be notified before construction starts, and it will take them 120 days from receipt of notice to proceed. And this is a continuation of our capital improvement program within GCSD to replace the oldest and any problem sewer lines. Big Waves Airport Street Sewer has been completed and is being tested to see if it meets our standards. And they haven't issued a permit for the Harbor Village RV Park. They've approved the plans, however. And the public restroom project at Pillar Point has been approved, and construction should start on that fairly soon. So I think these are things of interest to our community, which is why I kind of like to move it.
Okay. So we will move that up.
Anyone have any comments or questions on the engineer's report?
I think it's good you just gave that summary, and that's just what we need to do every time.
Yeah.
If I could just mention that the Big Wave mainline extension will be coming before the board for approval to be dedicated to the district once we get the engineer's final letter of sign off on that. So that will be forthcoming.
For that,
And John will actually be out for next meeting, so we'll have to figure that out. John Rayner.
will he be able to give us a report?
That's what I'm going to have to figure out. As part of his report, I'm just going to print his vacation schedule, which will make us all jealous.
Well, he's retired and we're his only client now, and he does a really good job.
He got bored. Yeah, he got bored of Hawaii, so now he's in Italy, in Palermo and Positano. So
Tough life. But he does a very good job for us. So
he's great. Yes, he's been great for 20 years.
do we have any future agenda items? Right. Anything further? So good night, everyone. Thank you for coming. Good meeting.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
To our
Thanks,
guests.
everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.